burial, and resurrection, and say when that happened, my life changed, and I was able to rejoice. I was able to be relieved of my guilt. So I write different things in that third area. I was able to find some peace in the chaotic time. I was able to, whatever it was, I was able to find some peace going through that change in my life, and I was able to fulfill God's purpose. 30 seconds, boom, you shared the gospel. I even put a script in your paper for you, in your handouts there. It's probably full of typos. But again, don't get caught up on the script. Just talk, can I share with you something? And share your story, talking about God's purpose for your life, how your life became broken, and how God put your life back together. Gospel conversation. Can I share with you something? Yeah. Okay? And there's only 3 responses. I know it's hard for us to do this because we're afraid how people respond. There's only 3 ways people are going to respond. And once you know how to handle those 3 ways, then there's nothing to be afraid of. And again, we're just having a conversation. It's not our job to convert. Our job is just to plant seed and let God work on hearts. Yes, ma'am.
It's just about stepping out of your comfort zone.
I usually say this, you're right. You can't be comfortable and be faithful. Because everything God tells us to do gets us out of our comfort zone. Loving my enemies is uncomfortable. Doing good for evil is uncomfortable. Blessing those who come is, you cannot be faithful and be comfortable. And I don't like hearing that because I like being comfortable and I don't like change. Okay, but you're right. I'll share your. This is hard for me. I would rather preach in front of 10,000 people than knock on one door. Don't ask me why. And I'll tell you. I'll share something with you in a minute. But is that simple? That's two. Tool ones. Tell your story. Just let me share it. Here's what my life was like before. Here's how I became a Christian. Here's how I got through this situation. Here's how God got me through it. It just takes a little bit of work. 4 truths. I stole this from Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Someone says, man, I'm just going through some conflict, or maybe let's say condemnation. I just feel like God can't love me because I've messed up so bad. Well, can I share with you something that helped me? And I draw a heart, and I'll say, God loves you. God made you. He made you for. God doesn't make mistakes. There's no such thing as an illegitimate child. There may be some illegitimate parents, but God created you. So you're here for a purpose. Sin separated me from God, and I talk about how we've all sinned and how sin separated me from God. So I draw the little division sign. Then I draw the cross and talk about how Jesus rescued me. And I share the gospel and how Jesus is my king now and how he died for my sins and how he freed me from not only my sins but the guilt of my sin, and he reigns as King Jesus. And then I draw a question mark and I share with them the plan of salvation. Does that make sense? Here's what Jesus has done for you. Would you like to be? And again, I personalize it, but I just want to, God loves you. So if you're going through this change in your life, if you're going through empty nest, if you're going through this, one of those 8 C's, I want you to know God loves you even though you don't feel like it. And I know, in my life, sin separated me and I turned my back on God during that chaotic time or whatever. But now Jesus still loves me. He forgives me. And then I just, done. Very simple. It's got to be simple because I'm a simple-minded guy. I don't know adverb from an adenoid, so it's pretty simple, okay? I like this one. We use this a lot with our addiction ministry. It's called a decision box. This is good for people. I don't know whether to take, I'm just confused. I don't know if God wants me to take this job or not. I don't know where to go to college. I don't know. And so I draw a little box. And I say, let's put what you're trying to decide to do in that box. And then I ask them to answer these questions. Is it helpful? If is what you're deciding to do, is it helpful? Is it going to help you reach your short-term goals? Is it going to help you, is it going to help you find the peace you're seeking? Is it helpful to your relationships? If you take this job, is it beneficial? How will you feel afterwards? Will you feel guilt? Does it glorify God? Is it beneficial? Then I have them write the third. Is it wise? How's it going to affect your family, your faith? How's it? Is it where you want to be 5 years from now? How's it going to help you get where you want to be? And then the fourth one is it praiseworthy? And usually I say, what would your grandma think about it? What would your grandma think about it if they knew you were thinking about that? And so you ask all those questions, and is it, if you do this, is it help? And then I tell them, if you can't answer yes to all those questions, don't do it. I would really consider, don't do it. And when we deal with, especially with our addicts, or recovering addicts, and they deal with that, and they talk about maybe jumping into this relationship and what should I do, or taking this job, well, how's it going to affect you spiritually? How's it going to, and if you can't, and as it sounds, can I share with you something that helps me when I had to face decisions? Boom, boom, boom. Sometimes it's, depending on their background. Another way is I look at the passage where Jesus says, Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor of God and man. I just take those four things. He grew in wisdom. Is it wise? How's this, is this a wise thing for you? Is it healthy? How's it going to affect you physically? Is it, how does it affect your relationship with others? I remember one time, I sort of used this. I got asked to go to try out for a church in Florida, and it was the weirdest thing ever done. They flew my whole family down to Orlando. We got out. They took our kids to NASA and took us house hunting before they even asked us the first question. This is just the weirdest thing in the world. It's like, I don't know if I like you, and I don't know if you like me. And so, but they had the old question and answer thing with all of this and everything, and the preacher, people asking questions. And I look over, my son, who was 8 years old at the time, he drew a picture of a church building with a cross on it and had Stop 9, which is the name of our church, our congregation in Byesville. I know it's not very evangelistic sounding, Stop 9. And he wrote, yay, yay! And then he drew a picture of the other church there, and he had planes bombing the church. Boo, boo, boo! And I looked at that, and I knew right then and there I wasn't going to accept that job. Because just the relationship with others. And so that's just a tool. Can I share with you something? Man, I just don't know what to do about this. Well, can I share with you something that might help me? That's number 4. Told you it's simple stuff. And so those are just some tools. Here's the other thing, how the church can help you real quickly that we talk about, because when you have these gospel conversations, and it may take months. I'm not saying you go in like a shark the first time and start, are you saved? But you build that relationship and you ask them. But part of making disciples is, because our goal is not only to make disciples, our goal is to make disciple makers. That's how you know somebody's going to be sitting in your pew 50 years from now or 100 years from now. So we want to make disciples that make disciples. And it's important that you have leaders that focus on equipping. And I want to just spend a minute on that. And good, because Ephesians 4 says that God gives us people to be evangelists and pastor teachers and elders to equip God's people for works of service so they can mature and become like Jesus. So the goal of every leader in the church is to help you become more like Jesus. It's not to do everything for you. If I want a selfish, spoiled, rotten kid, what do I do for him? If I want to build a selfish, spoiled, rotten church, what do I do for him? Everything. If I do my job right, I'll work myself out of a job. I was at Stop 9 36 years. They didn't need me the last 30. I was just hoping they didn't find out. Because they could have got along fine without me. In fact, when I quit, They're growing still. It maybe sort of hurt my feelings. You know, the young kid that took my place, he's, all right? But part of this gospel conversation, I think, is, and I'm doing this because Russell sort of asked me to share with you, is to provide opportunities for you to have gospel conversations. And so that's what all that stuff out there is with Healing Hands. And Russell asked me to share with you a little bit about Magi, because that's one way we can sort of have, you prepare people by giving them tools. I think one of the things preachers we fail at the most is equipping people. I don't do a whole lot of funerals anymore. I didn't do a lot. I had our members do the funerals. We had our deacons sort of oversee families, and one time I got a call from Gene West, one of our deacons, and he said, Woody, so-and-so, sister so-and-so's son just hanged himself. And I said, oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I said, when you get out there, tell me what you find out. What? I said, well, you go out there and handle that. I got a Bible study coming. I think this guy's going to be baptized tonight. I don't want to cancel the Bible study. You just, well, I don't know what to say. I said, Gene, there's nothing you can say. Just go out there. Hug him. Yeah, but I know. Do you want me to cancel this Bible study? If you get out there and you can't handle it, you call me. Why don't you take Carl with you, one of our other deacons? Yeah, but I don't. I said, I know you are. Comfort zone. I said, I know. But Gene, you got this. And before it was said and done, Gene and Carl went out there. They did the funeral. They came back. How do we do a funeral? So sit down. I'll show you. And 6 people were baptized. The youngest one was 72. I love pushing people out of their comfort zone. Prepare them and turn them loose. I mean, we are famous in the church of just teaching people to death and never giving them an opportunity to do it. And so you do that. You pray the 3 circles. We'll come back to that in a minute. I don't know if it's at the end or not, but we'll find the 3 circles. And I'll talk to you about the 3 circles here. Flip through there. Is there 3 circles at the end of this? No. I don't know what I've done. There is some at the end? Okay, yeah. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then you provide. And this is what this is about, Magi, because I think as a church, we need to provide opportunities for our people to have gospel conversations. And so we do that. We have like a free Christmas Day community dinner where our people come and serve. And we have the local bar bring down barbecue Christmas Day, so they walk in with their barbecue. And our people, we have opportunity to have gospel conversations. We encourage our people to do it. We encourage our people to pray with the waitress at their church, or at the restaurant. That, hey, we're getting ready to say a prayer. Is there anything we can pray with you about or for you about? Our people love that. They would come back and report. One of them, I tell you what, I had to give this waitress my last $20 because she needed some money. Everybody was doing it except one person in our congregation couldn't do it. You know who couldn't do it? I would choke up. And they would come back, and I would confess on Sunday morning, guys, I'm hearing you praying with it. I'm struggling with that. For whatever reason, I'm just having... It got so bad that my wife and I were at Cracker Barrel, and no lie, a waitress walked up to me and said, would you pray with me? I'm like, what? I got it, Lord. She said, yeah, I heard you as a preacher. Would you pray with me? My son's sick. Well, God had to just shame me into doing that. But we provide opportunities. This is what Magi is. Magi is part of Healing Hands, and I'll show you how we sort of do it. Magi is basically a congregation that gets boxes and they fill it up to give kids in third world countries. This has a jump rope, has a doll, has a water bottle, has a wash rag, has some stuff. And we use it to help for disciple making and sharing gospel stories, because we have our people, we give them a list. There's a booklet that tells you how to do it, where we go in, and Then we take it to a village through the missionaries. And we do it as a community outreach locally because we have the boxes and we usually go, hey, can you take this kid from this family or this kid and help them buy food for something, or buy the box, the items on the box, put it in. And then it starts out as a local mission and people, why are you doing that? Well, ding, 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 ding. Let me tell you about why we're doing it. You tell them about Jesus. And so Magi is something I think Russell's interested in. And it's a great opportunity because you can do it as a congregation. Because discipling is not just the people out in the world, discipling is the little kids in the classroom here. I took my granddaughter, and she filled the box because she did it for a 4-year-old, whatever it was, girl or whatever. Or some churches do it where they have, okay, we're going to bring in Pencil Sunday. Everybody bring in pencils. And all of a sudden, opportunities like that. The other thing we do is walk for water, where you walk 4 miles for water, and we do it through our local high school, and it's a great outreach that becomes a foreign mission effort that becomes a local outreach, and we raise the money to dig the well. We got the entire baseball team from Muskingum University coming on Sundays now. But it all started with, if I said, hey, why don't you come to church? No, we ain't come to church. Hey, would you help provide clean drinking water for somebody? Yeah. Well, why are you doing that? Well, let me tell you about Jesus. So, provide. And so, I'll leave this here. And anybody, there's some more back there. If you're interested in Magi, it's just a great opportunity for the congregation to do something that helps on a local level as well. That makes sense? And then when we prepare people through their tools, when you teach people to pray, when you provide them with opportunities. Every ministry is an opportunity to have a gospel conversation. Then you produce disciples who make disciples. Okay? So that's my Healing Hands commercial. And there's information out there. There's other things. They do sewing. They do sewing where they sew clothes for this. We have a group of ladies that aren't even members of our church that get together and sew, but they're sewing with other people that are members of the church, and they talk about Jesus while they're sewing. Because we got ladies that, I ain't going to church. Well, can you come and sew and make a little dress for a poor little kid in Nigeria? Sure. Why are we doing this? Well, let me tell you. Make your ministries opportunities to have gospel conversations. All right, we're winding down. Maybe. I'll repeat. Prepare, pray, provide, produce, repeat. Oh, there we go. There's a Magi. Listen, eventually with the gospel conversations, we look for opportunities to invite people to accept Jesus. We want to be invited. Even if I don't want to go to the wedding, I want to be invited. All right? Because a lot of times I don't want to go, but we like being invited. And so a gospel opportunity, we need to understand God's inviting everyone to the party. And so I need to understand that. And so a gospel conversation has three, it's like a 3-legged stool. I transition. Can I share with you something that helped me? I pick a tool. I don't care what it is. You just share your story somehow, some way. But then there comes a point where you have to ask a question, where you offer an invitation. And it could be, does that make sense? Or, how, would you like to be, at some point in that conversation, we have to do that. Now, here's what we need to understand. Let me see your paper again, please. I left out number 2, didn't I? Where it says, remember, we are responsible for the invitation. We are not responsible for the results. So, if you invite someone, if you share the gospel with someone, you pleased God. Your job's not to convert anybody. You can't change anybody. If I could change people, Russell, our job would be a lot easier. Absolutely. But y'all don't want to listen to us. My job is, when people ask, how many responses do you have? 200. At Woodsville, we have about 200 people. Had 200 responses. 199 people said no, and 1 said yes. Your job is to just plant the seed and let God work. And then you tell the story of a funeral you did like 20 years ago, and 20 years later, the spouse became a Christian, the widow became a Christian. You did tell me that story. Yeah, I know. Just plant the seed. That man's a seed planter right there. That dude is a seed planting machine. And just plant the seed. And you've succeeded. Yeah, but they said no. That's okay. You did what God wanted to do. That's not your job. God will work on their hearts. And so we prepare for those responses. Only 3 responses. In that passage, there's a passage, I think, on your outline in Acts where Paul's on Mars Hill. Is that on there? Yeah. Okay. And it says that some sneered after Paul talked about the resurrection. Some sneered and said, resurrection, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. Some said, hey, we want to hear more about this. And some believed. That's the only 3 responses you can get when you say, hey, red light, green light, yellow light. That's it. There's no other responses. And once I know how to handle those responses, so I'm listening to somebody, I'm building a relationship with the person I buy coffee from every morning. We go from a casual relationship to a meaningful one, and they start sharing about their family, and they say, man, I'm telling you what on the noon. You say, well, can I share with you something that helped me? And I share my story. I share a gospel conversation may be, can I just pray for you about that? That's a gospel conversation. That's powerful. Can I just pray with you about that? We got a guy that worked at a furniture store that every time people would call, salesman would call, he would pray with them. He prayed with some guy from India. He prays with the truck drivers. He tells us stories about how this Muslim truck driver grabbed his radio and said, this guy's praying for me. Nobody's prayed for me. He prays for his customers. Prays with them. That's a gospel conversation. But you transition, and then those are the only 3 responses you're going to get when you finally get to the point. It may be several conversations, and finally you say, hey, like the waitress at Denny's I talked about this morning, Terry. But Terry, when are we going to get together and study? I know. And it's been going on for 2 years. I know. Someday. And we're still just, so I know the response. And eventually we'll get her. Maybe. So here we go. Wait a minute. I don't know what I'm doing.
That's right. He's right there.
Okay. Green light response. My goal's great. Would you like to be baptized today or tomorrow? My goal is to get them in the water as soon as possible. But I also want to understand this. I want to count the cost. I want to make sure they understand the cost of discipleship. All right? And so after I talk them into it, I try to talk them out of it. And I go to the Luke 14 passage, where Jesus says, anyone who does not deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me cannot be their disciple. Deny self means you don't have any rights. So I tell him, you ready to give up your rights? Do whatever Jesus says? Take up your cross. When Jesus took up his cross, where'd he go? To die. You ready? Follow me. That sounds easy, but Jesus tells us to do some pretty tough stuff. You ready to love your enemies? You ready to listen to Jesus when it comes about sex? You ready to listen to Jesus? And then Jesus says, anybody who comes after me but does not hate his father or mother, you ready to hate your mom? That always gets them. What? Jesus will hate my mom? Well, he's using hyperbole there. Jesus used hyperbole a lot. For example, he said, if your right eye causes you sin, poke it out. If your right hand causes you sin, chop it off. He didn't mean that literally. If so, we'd all be walking around with a CNI dog and a cane on our stub. What he says was, you do whatever. He's using hyperbole to say, do whatever it takes to get rid of sin. We use hyperbole all the time. I hit that ball a mile. Well, no, you didn't hit it 5,326 feet or whatever a mile is. I don't know. You just hit it a long way. I'm so hungry, you need a horse. Well, you're not going to eat Mr. Ed. I'm really hungry. When Jesus said, you hate your mother and father, what he's saying is, I have to become the most important relationship in your life. And so I always count the cost, and then my goal is to get them in the water. That's the first response. Does this make sense? Have you ever become Christian? Yeah. Okay, well, let's count this cost. The yellow response is, I love it when they say, well, I don't know, let me think about it. I usually say, was there a particular question you have? Or invite them to a Bible study. Can we get together next week? What about Wednesday? Is that good for you? Give them a passage. Say, won't you read this passage? And let's get together. Or you invite them to church. When they say, man, I want to think about it for a while. I had one lady stood with a long time, and she kept putting it off. Found out she was just afraid of water. I said, well, you know what? We'll get a lifeguard there. If I drop you, you'll float to the top eventually. Yeah, we'll do something. We'll have the Red Cross there. We'll have the EMT there. We'll do something. But it took me about 3 months to get to the fact that she was just afraid of it. She kept putting it off. I'm just afraid of water. Well, all right. We can fix that. But the yellow response. Okay, what about next week get together and I answer that question or whatever? And then the red response is, well, like I'm at the firing range. If they say, ain't no way, I just be gracious, leave the door open. I give them a napkin, or I just say, okay, thanks. Thanks for listening to me. If you ever change your mind, just let me know. Those are the only 3 responses you're going to get. That's it. Any questions? Teach, train, sin. Go make disciples, teach, obey, repeat. We want people to be converted, but we want them to be commissioned. Here's the other thing. How long did it take the woman at the well to become a missionary and tell her story? How much training she have? None. She just ran back into town. You don't believe this? We wouldn't. Well, I'm sorry, you got to sit through this. And training's good. How much did the Gadarene demonic? None. Jesus said, just stay in town, tell everybody how I changed you. Yeah, but I don't know Greek. Well, I know it. Well, you probably knew Greek, but yeah, but I don't know how to. Well, you do understand that in the New Testament church, they didn't have a church building. They didn't have Christian colleges. They didn't have Bibles. They didn't have pews. They didn't have good music. All they had was a story. All they had was people that when they were scattered around the world just started holding gospel conversations. Peter would go to the synagogue, have a conversation. Peter would go to the marketplace, say, hey, how's it going? Didn't have any of that. They didn't have the internet. They had a bunch of people who wanted to go around and have gospel conversations. You want to shake up Cyrus? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22 people. 22 people go out and just start having gospel conversations. I guarantee you in 3 months' time you're going to shake up Cyrus. Well, people down there talk about Jesus all the time. And all you're doing is just saying, here's how Jesus changed my life. Because they can't argue with you. They may think you're nuts. They can't argue with you. Teach, train, and sin. Lydia, she wasn't a Christian long. She had a house meeting in her church. So here we go. We look for the 8 C's. Transition. Everybody understand that transition statement? Hey, can I share with you something? Help me. You share your story, plant a gospel seed. I think one of the tools I skipped was Jesus stories. Just tell the story of Zacchaeus. You don't have to get all biblical about it. And you can just say, hey, I read this story about this guy. And so pray for opportunities. Here's what you start doing. God, send people in my life. Get ready. He'll send nuts to you. You understand it when you say, God, give me opportunities. You're saying, God, send people with problems into my life. Okay, he's going to send broken people. Get ready. It's fun. And if I don't know what to do with them, I just send them to Russell. Okay? Pray. Just start praying. And we'll get specific on that in a minute. Plan for opportunities. That's where you train and you start working on your story now, and you start developing ways, to do that. You're planning now. You practice your story. You build relationships. You develop tools. You get up in the morning living for purpose, not for self. Look for opportunities. Listen for the 8 C's. Look for opportunities to serve. Get out of your comfort zone. There's opportunities to serve all. It can be as simple as opening a door for somebody and saying, have a great day. It could be just the simplest thing done in the name of God takes on eternal significance. We got a lady in our church that just went to heaven that her ministry was cleaning the toilets. She was a multi-millionaire. And she said, please don't ever take that ministry away from me. Because toilet cleaning is an important ministry. You know, people come to church to visit and they go in and the toilet's clean. That's a big statement. The most simplest, that's not right. The most simplest, not good grammar, not that I know. The most simple thing done in the name of God takes on eternal significance. So don't ever think it's not important. Seize the opportunity. When it happens, someone says, yeah, and you go, oh, here's a chance. Prayers don't have to be long. Okay, God, help me. Can I share with you something? Seize the opportunity. Well, what if I don't? What if I mess up? So what? God's bigger than your mistakes. God will help you say what you need to say. And then celebrate. We celebrate stories all the time. Stop 9. Yeah, I met this guy. We even celebrate our failures. Well, I talked to this guy, and he told me to get out of there, and he about cussed me out. Well, let's just pray for him. Okay. I mean, we celebrate our failures. We went and prayed with this waitress this week. We did. Who'd you have a gospel conversation with? Well, I had a gospel conversation with a guy down at the junkyard, and he just... And it may have just been a 15-second conversation. And then train new disciples to follow steps 1 through 5. Let's see. First century disciples, they had a reputation of turning the world upside down. I'm trying to get to the 3 circles. Is it? All right, here's 3 circles. On the 3 circles, write your name in the middle, and then write in each circle 3 people that you want to pray to ask God to give you an opportunity to have a gospel conversation sometime in 2026. My 3 circles are Tristan. Tristan's a 20-year-old guy who started coming to church with Hoppy. Remember I talked to you about Hoppy? He's Hoppy's nephew. Tristan's mom and dad both died of overdoses. He moved in with his grandfather, who died of cancer. So he moved in with Hoppy. Hoppy's kicked him out, had to send him away because he was messing with some drugs too. And so Tristan one Sunday, I said, Tristan, you want to go out to eat? I just want to talk to you. Why do you want to take me out to eat? I just want to talk to you. We went out to eat, sat down. I said, Tristan, tell me about your life. And he told me, and I said, well, what do you think about God? I don't know. I said, well, can I share with you something? And I did. And I'd like to tell you he's been baptized into Christ, but he hasn't yet. But he's in my circle of 3, and we've met like 3 or 4 times. He was homeless for a while. We helped him with that. There's Tristan. There's Lane. Lane's new to my circle of 3. I coach basketball. Lane's a kid who was on my basketball team. And the coach last year said, oh, there's nothing but trouble. I started talking to Lane. And Lane, man, you're a great guy. Lane's been attending church now. Him and his mom both have been attending, and we're very close to sitting down and have a gospel conversation. But I've been praying, God, give me an opportunity to just share with Lane. Gospel conversation. The other one's Josh, who's already a Christian. But I want to move him closer. I want him to move from being a disciple to a disciple maker. And he's one of my basketball players, and he's a Christian, good guy, and he's going to stay. He graduated. He probably could have gone and played college ball anywhere. He was our league's player of the year. Wants to be an electrician. I said, that's a great choice. But I told him, I said, I got a proposition for you, because my goal for him is to help him. I want to send him to Sunset where he can still work on and train him to become an evangelist. So I'm praying that God will help me have a gospel conversation with this young man who's already a disciple to move him on. So I would encourage you to reach your circles of 3 and then pray about it. Maybe Wednesday night, pray about it. As a group, I don't know. And just say, God, give me an opportunity sometime in 2026 to just have, I don't care if it's a 10-second gospel conversation with whoever that person is. Maybe they're a Christian. And then get up tomorrow with purpose and mission and say, God, send some nuts in my life. And start working on your story. Call me if you don't know how to do it. Just call me. I've got cards somewhere out there. Or he's got my number. Okay? Then we do it. Any questions? If we had time, we would do some talking points, but I know you're tired. Talking point, we ought to hand you these cards and just had you practice gospel conversations. Like, what do you think the relationship is between science and the Bible? Or just different questions. It's a good thing. You need to buy these cards. You got any question about Magi, let me know. All right? Did I get you out here in time? What did I say, 1:15? Man, y'all did good. Y'all stayed awake. I don't think I could have stayed awake. Okay, have a